Yo, hey, how is everyone? Welcome back to another builds or jam builds, whatever you want to call it. I forgot my name for the title in general, but welcome back. Simple as this, I'm going to show you the hunter builds first this week. If you're part of TikTok and you already saw the previous one with just the base hunter destruction build, I'm going to replay it for you right here. So the first build I got is more of a kind of a speed run type build for the average player, obviously. These go out to players who just want to get their GM done as quick as they can. So let's get into it. So all it is pretty much just a pure Star Eaters build with Arc Gathering the Storm, with Chill Clip and Stasis based items to freeze everything. And obviously with Chill Clip, if you do freeze and you smash a freeze and it shatters, it does increase damage. That's the whole combination of this build. If you didn't know as well, if you are using something like Chill Clip on a Riptide, it will freeze the anti-barriers prior to them getting their shield up. Because of the fire rate being so fast as well, it is just such a useful weapon entirely. But yeah, all this build is just pure destruction. There's nothing to it, nothing else really about it. These are the mods that I use up on screen. Most of these mods are really just going to be changed around for whatever I use with my team, pretty much. But yeah, with the arc aspects of the build, all it is just Spark of Ions, Spark of Resistance, Spark of Feedback, Spark of Shock, with Pulse Grenade, Combination Blow, Triple Jump, and Gambler's Dodge, because I want to be able to do the 1-2 punch combination if I choose to use a 1-2 punch weapon. Yet I use Flow State and Lethal Current. So with these builds, pretty much it's just the basic build of a punchy build on the Hunter. This is personally one of my favorite builds to use in boss encounters. Normally in a boss encounter on a raid or a dungeon, you don't actually use a 1-2 punch shotgun. But yeah, this is just what I use. Otherwise, next build for the Hunter that I'm going to show is, I'm just going to go back to what I normally use for just most of my GM runs. I would be running an Aeons build just for heavy ammo consistently with an invis based build to it. Obviously with Aeons you want to have at least 100 mobility. You don't necessarily need the strength, it depends what you want to do. You can use mods in the void slot aspect. There is one, I believe, that sits right over here. There, in one of these areas here, there is one where you throw a grenade, or grenade damage will actually get you melee energy. I can't remember which one because I don't use it as often as what a lot of people do use it. Still a fantastic perk if you want to use it yourself. But yeah, the one thing you will need to be using with all Aeons builds is Echo of Obscurity, Finishers, Final Blows, grant invisibility. Then obviously you don't need to, I preferably use it because I like the Void Breach. Void Breach and Orb of Power, grants Devourer, Echo of Starvation, Echo of Dilation, but that's more for me to get 100 mobility. Echo of Persistence, which pretty much cuts off that 100 mobility if I don't use Echo of Dilation. Echo of Dilation is still really good either way. Probably either way, this is one of my favorite builds of all times. I use Suppressor Grenade to stop overloads, as well as if you are versing Hive Guardians, because next week is the Rotator where we can choose whatever GM we want to do. If you need to take out Hive Guardians, Suppressor Grenade is the best grenade. It does delay, just remember that. Obviously using Snare Bomb, Triple Jump, and Gambler's Dodge, with Vanishing Step and Travis Ambush. But otherwise, another build that would be great for this week is your classic Falcons build. Obviously, you want to have a high discipline into these builds. What you want to use is Vanishing Step, obviously, with Stylish Executioner. I still prefer to use Suppressor Grenade because that does make me invis due to Stylish Executioner's effect, which is defeating a weakened, suppressed, or volatile target grants invisibility. After performing Stylish Executioner, your next melee attack, while invisible, weakens targets as well. I use Echo of Obscurity. You don't necessarily need Echo of Obscurity. You can actually change that around for anything else you want. But if you want that extra invis, obviously there. I use Echo of Instability, Echo of Dilation again, and Echo of Starvation. These are what I use. This is what I would be using this week on my Hunter coming up for the Devil's Lair Nightfall. Obviously, I would actually be more or less on the side of using an Assassin's Crowd build like this build here that I normally have going with Arc. It's the exact same build as what I'm using on my Star Eaters. It's just the only difference in the stats is that I make sure I'm using a higher mobility than anything else. It just varies on how you want to make your hunter builds. Mine are always mobility, resilience, strength, or discipline. So I'll move on to the Warlock now. I hope you enjoyed these builds for this week. I hope you try some out. Personally, my favorite would be the Grafalco's build. Due to the way this week kind of is, it will just nuke everything for a pure ad clear, especially with one of the Warlock builds. They kind of harmonize together with the right combination. So we're on the Warlock builds now, guys. First things first, the build that you want to be using probably this week, besides from the second build, which I will put up in a moment, is a mix between the Fallen Sunstar and Crown of Tempest build, where it's just a pure ability spam. If you don't already know, with Crown of Tempest and its regen, with the regen, as well as Fallen Sunstar, depending on how effective your stats are, if you're using Crown of Tempest, making sure you have high strength as well as discipline, recovery, and resilience. You want to have all three, all four with high stats, roughly. If you are going to go Fallen Sunstar, you don't need to worry so much about the strength. Cut that out for just pure discipline. This is just my preference on how to utilize the build best. But otherwise, all that would be is using these aspects as well on your subclass, making sure you have Ball Lightning, Pulse Grenade, Electrostatic Mine, Arc Soul, Spark of Shock, Spark of Magnitude, Spark of Volts, and Spark of Ions. I use Spark of Volts because doing a finisher will make me amplified and it gives me an extra 10 recovery, which really helps me out in the long run for my stats, obviously. But this is the Arc build I would recommend highly. But I recommend use this build only if you have this build on your team as well. So we're going straight into this. It's just going to be a Phoenix Protocol build. Fantastic, obviously, with just getting your super back. Where you want to lie or what stats you want to rise in. The stats you want to rise in is resilience and intellect. I'd say the third one is recovery, more or less, because you just want to spam that super over and over and over again. Another thing you can do for this is just pretty much, I personally use stuff like Incinerator Snap, Healing Nade. I still just use Touch of Flame and Icarus Dash, but the fragments that you want to be using is Ember of Solence, Ember of Resolve, Ember of Singeing or Singing, whatever you want to call it, and Ember of Benevolence, because this is more of a support build. You want to be able to get your grenade back faster. Benevolence does that for you. You want to get Radiant and do some more damage. Singe does that for you, or one of the ones, Solace, sorry, does that for you. With that, obviously, it increases your damage output at the same time. That's why I kind of use it, and it just works in harmony with one another. Another exotic it does work really, really, really well with is the Rain of Fire boots. Last but not least is going to be a strand build, just utilizing Swarmers. Obviously, depending on how you want to run this, you can run this however you want. You don't have to use Shackle, you can use the Threadling Grenades as well, obviously. But similar as this, I use Mind Spun Invocation with the Wanderer aspect. Weaver's Call is really good, but if you want to actually do some damage in a GM, or you want to be able to hang everything up, the Wanderer is better. I use Shackle Grenade, Arcane Needle obviously, Burst Glide, and Healing Rift. These two is your call. Unfortunately, that's the only one we do have to use. Otherwise, I have Thread of Generation, Thread of Mind, Thread of Binding, and Thread of Continuity. And that's just how easy it is. I recommend if you're going to use this build this week, making sure to have the Navigator. Due to Trace Rifles being overload this season, that would just benefit you in the long run. Otherwise, yeah, these are all the Warlock builds for this week. I'll show you the Titan builds. The Titan builds are probably just going to be 2 or 3 basic ones that everyone should have, and one that is actually kind of a test theory for the upcoming Nightfall. Alrighty, boys and girls, last but not least, the Titan build, which is going to probably be my favorite build for this week upcoming. because it will be able to delete everything, whether you use two versions of or three versions of this one. This build here is, well, the first one is what I called Code Nuclear. The other one is what I just called Devastation, only due to everyone knowing what Arc Titan kind of is at the moment. Code Nuclear, which been a video about this already, but they don't put it as, obviously they don't put it as what I've pretty much put it. I'm just trying to change it up a bit more to suit my style of play. I don't actually use these gauntlets here. These are just what's currently on. I use Heart of Immortal Light. Just change that over so you guys not actually realize. So I actually use Heart of Immortal Light for this build entirely. The aspects and everything are exactly the same. As you can see, it's just minus, minus, minus. But that's where this build comes in hand, because you need those minus stats. Here's what you want to be running. You want to be running Rally Barricade. You want to run Shield Throw, Vortex Grenade. Doesn't matter what your jump is. Echo of Starvation, Echo of Persistence, Echo of Undermining, and Echo of Instability. You don't need Echo of Undermining. You can change that if you feel comfortable changing that. I believe it just helps with some of the actual other effects to the build, especially if you're using Void Weapons, which will make this build 5 times better. Making sure to have Bastion as well as Controlled Demolitionist. You don't need to have Bastion if you don't want to. You can just have Offensive Bulwark, but I believe Bastion is more effective for the runs. This is the Code Nuclear build, because all it does is just make everything volatile. And if you can abuse volatile, then pretty much you can do anything. Volatile is just a very, very, very abusive thing at the moment if you can use it correctly, especially with good, really good Heart of Immortal Light builds and other exotics coming around the Titans of late. The other one is just a T-Crash build, so obviously this build is basically the same stats that I have on my Heart of Immortal Light, but it's more built towards utilizing my grenade through all my abilities here. That's what a lot of these mods are actually based for, to get my grenade back. So I'm just going to be like nuking the boss damage, nuking champions down. You don't have to use this one, but technically it's just a ripoff of the Heart of Immortal Light build, which I'll put up in a second. The Heart of Immortal Light build, making sure you have these mods, making sure you have these stats. Code Nuclear has the exact same stats as what I have on my current Titan right here. You want to have resilience, discipline, and strength. That's all you need to focus on. You don't need to focus on anything else. I'll get into the details of what you want to be running. Spark of Magnitude, Spark of Shock, Spark of Resistance, Spark of Ion, Pulse Grenade. Thunderclap is more effective than using Seismic Charge or Ballistic Slam. Seismic Charge is still fantastic, obviously, with just the short air. Pretty much it's just a quick dash and you're out of danger, or dash and you're hitting an enemy and it lunges forward. It's still quite good. Making sure you use Thruster. I wouldn't be using Rally Shields or anything. Thruster is just the more one, because you want to be on your feet constantly. I use Knockout and Touch of Thunder in my build. And if you wonder why I use Pulse Grenade, it's because it creates more Ionic Traces with Touch of Thunder. Obviously, Storm Grenade kind of got screwed over with the nerf they gave it, but to them's their own. The last build is just a strand build that everybody should pretty much have at this point. I use this in 80% of my GMs. It's just hanging everything up, making sure to use the Abiding Leap with this build, and making sure to have these aspects and fragments. Rally Barricade, Shackle Grenade, making sure to have Dangerous Lash and Into the Fray, as well as Threat of Transient Musician, Threat of Mind, Threat of Generation, and Threads of Continuity. I hope you guys enjoyed this week's builds. I hope you guys enjoy. Like, subscribe, and share. I would like to actually build a really big community on this platform. If you want to catch me live, I'll be streaming here at least 2 times, 3 times a week until I officially leave Twitch. I'll also be moving over to Kick later in October to December of this year when I do get a PC. Otherwise, peace out, enjoy your weekends, enjoy your weeks.